Congratulations, Lavanya, on the fantastic fundraise. It's truly remarkable considering you joined Trifecta just last year. And would you elaborate a little on the entire experience and some of the learnings that you would have for the others?
Absolutely, Aparna. Thank you so much for your kind wishes. It's with the collective blessings of this ecosystem that in these times we managed to raise more than half our fund within 2 months of launching. When I joined Trifecta a year ago, it was peak COVID, and we had a lot of conviction in our late stage tech focused equity strategy. But we knew there was a lot of work ahead, and we had to fundraise exclusively on Zoom, which is unprecedented for most people and definitely for me. At Goldman, I was largely focused on investing the money. So the business of building a fund and getting support from a capital formation perspective was all new to me. But God has been kind. Our strategy has resonated. Investors have trusted and supported us, and we're off to the races. So really excited.
That is so interesting. Let's talk a little more about Trifecta Equity Growth Fund. What really took you to embark this opportunity? And also if you could speak a little on the industry trends that intrigue you.
Absolutely. So I've spent 16 years in finance and investing. The first 5 years of my career was largely rigorous analytical training, a lot of deal exposure, split between New York and Silicon Valley. I started out at Goldman as an analyst in the investment banking team, moved on to be an associate at SPO Partners, where really I started to fall in love with investing. And SPO was my first sort of foray into value investing. And taking disparate data points, crafting a narrative, building conviction around what makes a great investment. These are the things I learned from the SPNO of SPO Partners, the three managing partners. And post that, I went to Stanford and then came back to India to join Goldman as employee number 3. So this has been a decade-long ride at Goldman, building out the growth and private equity investing practice here. I started as an associate. I worked my way up to MD, and it was a fabulous ride. I've invested about 500 million in the country. I've pulled out $1 billion in exits, and I felt I was seeing a lot of very interesting trends in India tech, and that's really, Aparna, what prompted me to, when the Trifecta managing partners came knocking, to really say, I'm going all in and I'm going to take this opportunity to come and be a partner here at Trifecta and build out this late stage equity investing practice. The trends that I saw were the following, right? One is, independently, companies in India tech had shown very important scale and very strong growth against a very tough operating backdrop. So we've all lived through this, right? There was GST, there was demonetization, a credit crisis, a 2-wave pandemic. And through all of this, these companies have shown growth, resilience, a lot of nimble and agile decision-making, and really resilient cost structures coming out the other side. So I think I was starting to see the shoots of that 3-4 years ago. My conviction in India tech has only strengthened in the last few years in the ability of these businesses to become very important to our lives as consumers or the day-to-day of small and medium businesses and enterprises. So that macro trend of these companies coming of age was something I was very excited about. And as you know, Trifecta is the leading venture debt provider to the tech ecosystem. And we've provided credit to about 80 of the leading startups in digital India. And coming on board to double down on the most exciting companies at this late stage, where they may be 1 to 3 years from some type of liquidity outcome, just made a lot of sense to me. And I think the other thing I was seeing, and I studied at Stanford, like I told you, so I'm a true believer in the power of technology to transform lives. I was starting to see the next billion users becoming a reality. I was starting to see the internet driving access to all types of opportunity for broader consumption groups in the country. And that, I think, was also sort of what excited me to make this, where I spend the next decades of my career.
And post-COVID, that must have just expanded order of magnitude, right?
Absolutely, you said it, and I know you've been an investor in a number of leading technology powered companies as well. I think for some of them, the initial setbacks of COVID gave them an opportunity to strengthen cost structures. For some others, it was a momentary period of lull and then a lot of tailwind in terms of just digital adoption. So I'm sure companies fall on that spectrum somewhere, but I think this ecosystem has truly been a net beneficiary of what has been a very tough time for a lot of
Yeah,
us.
you would think that after 15, 18 months, we are, come out of the COVID, but I think companies are still learning in a sense on, how to kind of just stay current with the current economic wave. It's a rather interesting career path, Lavanya. You were an MD at such a global name, Goldman Sachs, for such a long time, and now you're joining a much younger company. What has this transition for you personally been like?
Aparna, I felt like I was ready for a new challenge, but I wasn't really sure what that challenge would look like from the outside in. I think what I learned from spending a lot of time with the managing partners of Trifecta was they see the opportunity in the same way I did. And they're very high integrity people with huge entrepreneur love. And so it was a combination of those factors that gave me the courage to say, let me really, see if I can do the 0 to 1 journey with a platform I respect and trust in an ecosystem that I think is very vibrant. And I think that was also the charm of saying, let's go build the first domestic late stage venture fund in the country, right? Because I think, what we learned when we were students at Stanford was the world is created by people like us. And I come from, a very normal middle class Tamilian Brahmin family where we were told we have to work hard and study hard and, go work for other people. But I think Stanford just sowed that seed of entrepreneurial zest in me maybe 12 years ago. Took me a while to find the courage to say I'm ready to now do this. But I think those were really the reasons, and I found the transition to be quite smooth, surprisingly. I think when you do anything with excitement and passion, it becomes really fun and really rewarding. And I did that with Goldman too. I threw myself into my job as employee number 3 over a decade ago, and I've done the same now. And it's been incredibly rewarding building a world-class team. It's been so much fun with every new commitment of trust from a limited partner. It's been, humbling getting entrepreneurs to support us on their cap tables in this late stage of the journey. And so I think, fantastic experience so far, very different in some ways from, like you said, Aparna, being a small part of a large institution. But both have their charm, and I think, lucky to be experiencing both in my career.
That's so interesting. Do you want to speak a little more about the quote you just shared? The world is created by people like us.
You know, when I was growing up, right, I always thought of excellence as giving the right response to what somebody asked you by preparing really hard. And I always thought, creativity was in a domain of its own, reserved for the performing arts or writing or, things that were not connected with my career. But as I've grown and seen a little bit more as a professional, I feel like there's just immense scope for creativity as a way of life. And I think any entrepreneur is on a creative path because you're building the future, right? And I think some of that confidence has come with time and with also seeing the sort of success of others and saying, hey, if they can do it, maybe I can try to. But I think that's a little bit of what Stanford gave me my real first taste of. That was the first environment where I was like, oh, everybody around me is dreaming about what they could be and do, and not really there's not necessarily a right answer to that. It's something you can make up as you go, because that's how the world was created.
That's so energizing and like really relatable in the way you say that, you think that creativity is kind of restricted to, say, performing arts or just something which you would, in a general sense, think it is artistic. But yes, also trying to bring it to what you do every day actually shows how much heart you can put into what you are spending most hours of your day in. Lavanya, there are such few female fund managers in India, and it is often felt that a lot of them get overshadowed by their male counterparts. Do you have any thoughts on how women fund managers can build their own brand equity and recognition?
Absolutely, Aparna. I think it's an important question, and not just for men or women, but for investors in general now. I think entrepreneurs are very focused on who they're taking capital from and not just the institution, because I think it's a long term relationship between an entrepreneur and an investor. And I think the comfort and trust that you build early on is what cements the relationship for the ups and downs that potentially lie ahead. And so I think for every investor to think about what they stand for is an important question and proposition. And I have been spending more time thinking about that, as I've grown up a little bit in the business. And I think specifically for women, because there's fewer of us, maybe it's harder to imagine what that career path looks like, right? And so I think it's important for those of us who've started to make that journey to lift as we rise, and sort of put our hand down and pull up whoever is looking to make the journey as well. And I think the way I have thought about how I would like to conduct myself as an investor is, someone who's very trustworthy, who takes the time to understand the business, who takes the time to zoom out and really arm myself with very good insights on the broader context and industry in which this business is operating, and someone who's helpful to the entrepreneur with whatever it is they need. Right? I think, especially at the late stage where we're coming in, the companies have already made the 0 to 100 journey, and now it's sort of the 100 to 1,000 journey, if you will. And so the needs of the entrepreneur are quite different. The ways in which we can add value are quite different. And so I think being capable of adding value where it helps the most is something I'm working hard on. And I think the way I'd like to be perceived by entrepreneurs is, a trusted partner in growth. And I think everybody has to decide for themselves what it is, they stand for. And that is determined by the stage of investing, the style of investing, and really what it is their context enables and allows for that role to become. But I think it is something we all work hard on. It is something that we value, because when I left Goldman, I didn't have my calling card anymore, right? It was truly just the relationships I had built over time, the knowledge I had acquired, the experience through multiple years of late nights and sleepless nights working on transactions, solving problems, being through the lowest of the lows with entrepreneurs. I think those are really what you take with you as you move out into the world. And so having your own sort of moral compass as a professional, I think, is also something that will shine through in whatever it is, you go forth and do.
So interesting. Just to follow on that, do you think women have it tougher now that you've even done your fundraise? Like even in terms of doing a fundraise, do you think women have it tougher?
It is a difficult question to answer in this context, because as a fund, we had some headwinds coming in and some tailwinds as well. Right? I think the headwinds during the fundraise process were the world was shut for physical meetings. And the capital formation journey is one of trust building primarily. Because ultimately, there is, of course, the idea, the strategy, the team that you're all, very excited about. But I think where the rubber hits the road does someone trust you with their hard-earned savings or not, be that an individual or an institution. So I think that was a big headwind, and we were all in uncharted territory, right? Nobody knew what it was like to do this all entirely virtually. I don't know if it was harder or easier as a woman because I've never done this before. Uh, I think it was, in an exciting way, a huge challenge to show others the magic we're seeing in the ecosystem, right? It takes a lot of personal conviction. It takes a lot of work to showcase what are the potential investment opportunities. And I think ultimately just takes a lot of deep passion and conviction to tell somebody else that, hey, this is my idea and I want you to back me. And I've done investing and finance for 16 years, but I'm doing this for the first time. So I'm not sure whether it was harder or easier as a woman. It was definitely hard virtually, but it was also in the context of people knew there had to be accelerated decision making because there was no imminent prospect of doing this in the physical world. So I think that was a tailwind. I think normally capital allocation decisions take a lot longer than I have experienced in the last few months.
Now we'll just move to a few fun questions. We all know you as the number crunching geek, but you are also proficient in three dancing forms. So what are you, a geek or a creative head?
I'd say I'm a geeky number cruncher, for a living, and I'm aspiring to creativity as a way of life.
Okay. What is your hack to quick and efficient decision making?
That's a great question. It's something I think about a lot because there's so many decisions we have to make in short order, especially as a newly launched fund. And I think one of the things I rely on is isolating what is important and gathering my thoughts around that. And once I make the decision, not looking back, your report card will come, right? And you will eventually know whether you took the right call or not. But I think forging ahead with conviction once you've identified what is important in that decision.
What is an effective habit that you nurture?
This is a recent habit, and I have to fully credit my husband for nurturing it in me, actually. But about a year and a half ago, I started meditating as a gift to myself. I always thought I was one of those people that couldn't sit still and was always on the move. And so meditation is not for me. But one of the things COVID gave us was, space to sit with our big decisions, right? The home you chose to live in, the person you chose to marry, whether you chose to have kids or not, your job. Everything is now 24/7. There's no compartmentalization. You can't escape from any of your big decisions, I feel. And so I started meditating just as a way to see if anything would change. And what I've loved about it, and why I'd encourage everyone to try it in whatever way is comfortable for you, is it's enabled me to just put a pause on my reaction. I think before, somebody would say something and I'd feel very tempted to just respond immediately, be that a work colleague, my children, my family, a friend. Now I found the ability to wait a little bit before I jump to a reaction has improved. It's still a very small improvement. I think I'm, a seeker on a very long path, but I can feel a lot more ability to be in control of my response. And I think that's a superpower that I would aspire to truly just cultivate and flex.
What is the social cause that you identify with?
There's a few that I really care about, but if you ask me about one specifically, I'd say, actually, it's hard to choose. So can I tell you two?
You can tell me more than two.
Okay. So one is social entrepreneurship. It's something that's dear to my heart. And the other is children and literacy.
Wow.
So these two things are, two that are very dear to me.
Right. Okay, now I'm just going to end it with the last question. If your life was a book, what would you call it?
Oh man, that's so tough. Okay. So I guess if it were my work life, I'd call it Cheerleader with a Checkbook.
Wow, okay, that's
Uh,
smart.
I think. And if it were my I guess general life, maybe seeking magic in the moment.
Okay, that's very inspiring. Lavanya, this was so nice and very insightful to hear from you, and you answered like all questions with such zest. It's very nice. What is your defining moment so far?
Oh man. Uh, you know, since we're talking about private equity and women and investing, I've said this story before, but I guess it's unforgettable for me. I was wandering around 9 months pregnant in the office, trying to sign an exit of a company that I'd been an investor in for a long time when I was at Goldman. And the entrepreneur told me, Lavanya, you have to deliver me this deal before you deliver your children.
Oh my God.
And the hashtag no pressure, right? And it was a twin pregnancy,
Oh
so
my God.
all bets were off on what would happen, right? But I signed that deal on October 19th, 2016, against a lot of odds because there were many moving pieces. And then I went into labor early morning on October 20th. So
Wow.
I kind of felt like, I managed to keep a promise that was given in jest, and I managed to usher my children into this world safely, and then disappear for a few weeks into the haze of new motherhood. So I guess that was my defining moment, and it also gave me a lot of confidence that, man, like looking back, I don't know how I did that. I was really sick, I was really large, and that deal was really complicated. But I think sometimes we're braver than we think, and I think more capable than we know.
Very nicely put. Thanks, Lavanya, for such an interesting chat. And I'm sure all our audience have been left very energized by all your experiences. Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you, Aparna. You've been so wonderful and thoughtful. Such a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you.